Good evening. Welcome to the Fairfield City School District Board of Education meeting for June 27th, 2024. Mrs. Lane, please call the roll.
Mr. Begley.
Here.
Mrs. Birding Miller.
Present.
Mr. Clark. Mrs. Gundrum.
Here.
Mr. Napier.
Here. Thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we're going to change things up a little bit. I have a statement to read here. The Fairfield City School District is saddened by the recent loss of Sandy Johnson. Ms. Johnson was hired in August of 1985 at Fairfield High School, which is now currently Creekside Middle School. Spent her entire career in that same building as an educational assistant. She served for a total of 39 years and was recently recognized as a Golden Apple recipient during our May 2nd Board of Education meeting. Please join me in a moment of silence in honoring the late Sandy Johnson. Thank you. First up is communication. We have no one to speak tonight. We will move on to Superintendent's recommendations and reports. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Begley. At this time, Dr. Rice will be covering the items listed under Personnel Professional and Personnel Support.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Bagley, members of the board, I have several items for your consideration this evening. Under Personnel Professional, number 1, resignations, letters A through C. Number 2, employment, letters A through I. That concludes all the items I have for your consideration under Personnel Professional.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. I will entertain a motion to accept these recommendations.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Napier and Mrs. Birding Miller. Mrs. Lane, please call the roll.
Mr. Napier.
Yes.
Mrs. Birding Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Gundrum.
Yes.
Mr. Begley.
Yes.
Mr. Bagley, members of the board, I have several items for your consideration under Personnel Support. Number 1, resignations, letter A through G. Number 2, unpaid leave of absence, letters A through D. And finally, number 3, employment, letters A through F.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. I'll entertain a motion to accept these recommendations as read.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Napier and Mrs. Gundrum. Mrs. Lane, please call the roll.
Mr. Napier.
Yes.
Mrs. Gundrum.
Yes.
Mrs. Birding Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Begley.
Yes.